What's up guys, it's 2SS Ethan, and today I'm going to be doing the top 10 things I love about my Camaro 2SS. So first up on the list is going to be the windows. Now I know this was on the top 10 things I hate about my Camaro 2SS, but it's honestly a very practical thing whenever you live in a very hot place. I live in South Georgia where it is constantly 95 to 100 degrees, and right after work I can just come outside, and as I'm starting my car I can roll the windows down, which is still nice. I mean, I have no need to roll them up at that point because I'm going in my car to go home. It's just very useful to be able to just roll them down to let all of the heat escape. And also, on a lot of sports cars, something that a lot of people don't notice is whenever you open the door to get in, the window actually rolls down just a tad bit. And then whenever you shut the door, it rolls back up. Now this is to prevent any suction in the car or pressure buildup whenever you go to shut the door. Next up, of course, is gonna be the sound. The stock 2016 Camaro 2SS comes with the quad dual mode MPP exhaust. Now this exhaust has butterfly valves which allow you to control the flow of the exhaust so that it's either loud or quiet. Now the butterfly valves work in a way to where it's kind of like this. So whenever you open them completely, they're like this, so that air is able to flow through it. Now whenever you close them, they do this, so it's a lot quieter and less noise can escape the pipes. But even with this car in stealth mode, once you get on the gas, you get this throaty, iconic muscle car sound. And I'll show you guys here in a second what that sounds like. But if you've never heard a stock Camaro SS, a 6th gen, it is amazing. It sounds aftermarket. I get people asking me all the time what exhaust I have on it, what headers, if I have a muffler delete, a cat delete, what I have done to the exhaust, and it's stock. And granted, with the rev limiter, I'm not able to really compete with other high-end muscle cars or modified exhausts. It's still amazing and one of the best bang for your bucks you can get. So next up on the list is gonna be lighting. Now, a lot of people don't know this, and I didn't know it until about a month ago, but the internal lighting in the car actually has a stealth mode to where you can turn off every bit of lighting in this car except for the heads-up display, and the gauges in front of you just dim. They don't completely turn off, so you're still able to see your speed, tachometer, your fuel, your temperatures, and all that. But it's still very dim, and of course, no one can see the heads-up display except for you. But all of the ambient lighting, the main display lights, the climate control, the radio, everything just completely goes dark. So next up on the list, I'm gonna try to say this as humbly as I can, but it's gonna be attention. Now, if you've owned a sports car that looks nice, sounds nice, performs nice, you know what I'm talking about. It's when someone comes up to you at a gas station, at a grocery store, in a parking lot, and just admires your car and let you know how much they like it. It is a very humbling experience because sometimes you start to realize how grateful you should be to own this car. Now, the attention that I get for this car is mainly older people, because they owned an older Camaro or an older muscle car. I had a man come up to me a few days ago who owned an older Trans Am, like the one in Smokey and the Bandit, and he said he admires any black and gold muscle cars because it reminds him of his dream car, the Smokey and the Bandit Trans Am. Now, next up on the list is gonna kind of be a weird one. It's gonna be the traction control. Now, a lot of people don't really like traction control because it stops you from being able to do cool things like donuts and drifting. But in this car, it's actually quite opposite. I noticed whenever I first got the car that traction control works a bit towards the favor of having fun. So if traction control is on and you try to break traction, it will let you break traction, but it does it in a very controlling manner. So whenever you do break traction, it will not let you break traction beyond a straight line. So if you try to drift the corner, you will be able to drift it, but you won't be able to swing your rear end out far enough to where an overcorrection would throw you off the road. So if you go to drift, you're gonna be able to do a rather controlled drift even as an amateur. So another thing about this car, I wanted to talk about just control in general. So whenever I say that, I mean, I've been in a lot of cars that were extremely fast, but they were scary fast. Like, I felt like I was not in control of the car. I felt like the car was just gonna leave me. It was so fast. And there was no traction, there was no control in steering, and there was no power handling. And whenever you take a corner, it just feels like you're gonna lose it any amount of throttle that you give it. With this car, I am always in control. Now with 455 crank horsepower and 455 foot-pounds of torque, you don't really have too much to work with. But without traction control and in a car this light, you would be very surprised at the things you can do. I've let a few people drive the car that owned faster cars, and one of them has a Mazda Miata that has around 300 real horsepower. Now in a car that light, that amount of power is significant, especially because it's boosted. And he said that the control in this car is a lot better because when he's driving the Miata, it's more of a scary power rather than a controlled power. So number 7 on the list, I'm not too sure if this is a word, but it's the buildability of the car. And what I mean by that is, ever since the start of the Camaro and the LT1, the early generation LT1, to the LS1, the LS3, the LS6, the LT1, the LT4, and now the LT2, they have all been Lego bricks of an engine. Now it's an engine that you can find parts for it just about anywhere. You can go on a marketplace, you can go on just about any parts websites, you can go on any muscle car forums, and you will find parts for this car, and sometimes relatively cheap. You will find different variations of this engine in all sorts of manners. I'm talking supercharged, procharged, turbocharged, meth injection, nitrous. You will find just about every possibility of this engine that there is because of how readily available all the parts are. And with forced induction being a lot cheaper for the early LS models, they are rather sought after because the amount of potential that the engine holds is ridiculous. So next up is gonna be the scheduling and the remote access allowed with the car. So as you may know, you can start and stop the car with the key fob, and you can roll down the windows with the key fob. But a lot of the accessibility in the software allows for turning on the AC, heat, the seat coolers, the steering wheel heater, and the seat heaters, all just by starting the car. So right now I have it set to whenever I remote start my car, it blasts my AC and turns up my seat air conditioning to high, because I mean it's 7:30 at night and it's 93 degrees. So you can imagine how hot it would be when I get off work at about 3 to 4 o'clock. So number 9 is gonna be how easily this car can be daily driven. Now it is a rather high powered sports car, but that does not mean that it's not somewhat practical for a daily driver. And what I mean by that is, when you're cruising around town and you're in low RPMs, this car is extremely comfortable. It feels luxurious and modern. The fact that everything is just about hands-free and you don't have to look at much, because with the heads-up display, you can have your Bluetooth, your speedometer, your tachometer, a G-force meter, your timing up there, and everything is just readily accessible even while you're just driving around town. So whenever everything gets put together, this is actually a very practical daily driver. Now last up on the list is probably gonna be my favorite, and that's gonna be the fuel economy. And again, this is a high power sports car, so you're gonna assume it doesn't get too much. But a lot of modern vehicles, mainly Chevy, have DOD. Now, what that is whenever you're in a low RPM cruising around town or even on the interstate, whenever it notices that you are not giving it much throttle, it will bump down to 4 cylinders. So it will stop 4 cylinders from firing, and considering you're only running a 4-cylinder car, you're gonna be getting a lot better gas mileage. Now, if I cruise around town at 50 miles per hour, I average about about 35 to 38 miles per gallon. Now that's instant. So whenever it all gets added together, I'm not sure what it will be for sure. Now that is instant fuel economy. So if you were to actually start a new trip and try to get the average fuel economy, it might be different, considering whenever you start to speed up from a red light or accelerate at all, it bumps back up to 8-cylinder so that you'll actually have the torque to move. So that's gonna be it for this video. I just wanted to make this because a lot of people said that I created a 10 things I hate about my Camaro, so why did I get the Camaro? Or is there anything that you even love about your Camaro? And there really is. I love this car infinitely more than I can hate it. And I mean, everything that I don't like about it is small, it's easily fixable, it's able to be modified. It's something that does not affect the drivability of the car. So I'm 2SS Ethan, take it easy.